So I think I've mentioned this before. I set up a little camera under the shelf here in the project room, which is still an utter mess. And the idea of that was to point down at the bench, and then I'd take a photograph every now and again when I was going to start something or finish something or part way through, just to kind of create a log over time of stuff I've worked on. And it's kind of been a bit sporadic. Well, doing projects in here as well, but that's partly because of the mess the place has gotten into, although there's a little bit more carpet now. But that's another story, I won't go off on that tangent. So the camera that was up there, I've managed to knock this off quite some time ago actually. I think stacking boxes and things up in there and chucking stuff from one room to the other, and it's got whacked. And it's just a cheap like plastic frame that goes around it. This is a GitUp camera. It's a bit like I think it's GoPro 4 or 5, GoPro Hero maybe 4 or 5, the older GoPros. It's just sort of a knockoff kind of thing, but not. It's okay for what it is and the price. Anyway, so this frame fits around the camera, and then there's like a little bit that sticks out on these normally, and that will screw on. So that would normally be fixed up there like that, and you can't get the camera out of the frame without undoing the nut and bolt, which I've just realised I haven't got an Allen key for, so I'm going to have to go and fetch one. It's a bit annoying in some ways because you can't get the camera out, but the idea was to just leave it here, leave it in a fixed position, so the shot was always exactly the same. It's just the contents of the desk that then, or the bench, that changed. There are some because I've been looking on eBay for a replacement for this, which I've found here. There are some that seem to have like a latch that you can release so that it slackens the frame off, and then you can slide the camera out. So I might consider getting one of those, but for now I just want to get this up and running. And there are also different ones that have holes in different positions, because like there's obviously the form factor of these are quite similar, but they do have the buttons and the indicators and things in different places, and the outputs. So this particular case, this has been modified. This had different holes. There was actually a hole there, you might be able to see like a half moon bit. So I've actually cut that out so that the ports on the side are fully accessible, because I think the USB wasn't. I'm not really bothered about the microphone. And then the other thing, because this was going to be fixed in place, but I wanted to be able to get the footage off of it from the card itself rather than having to plug a USB in, I actually cut this slit here so that I could get at the SD card slot on the side there. And the holes are quite big. A bit bigger than it needed to be really, but even at that it's hard to get the card out because you've got to get something in there, like a nail or your nail or a pen top or something to release that. But it's releasable. So I've got this replacement. It's very similar, not exactly the same. You see there's differences there, and this extra bit. I'm not sure if that's like a windshield for the mic, because I think the GoPro mic might be on the top. Buttons are different here. For this that shouldn't be an issue. I'm not sure if that indicator will be visible, but again there's no slot here for the SD card to be accessible, so I'm going to have to cut a slot for that. And then this side is actually more open. I think the mic might be covered, but I'm not using the mic, but the rest of the stuff there is accessible, the ports. So I'm going to look to cut a slot in this side so I can access the SD card. Perhaps see if I can position it a little bit better than the last one. So I'm just going to work out where approximately that needs to be, and it would actually help if I had this the right way around in order to do that as well. So I think if we aim for about there. And I'm just going to drill some holes with a fairly small drill bit, and then try and finish the rest with a file. So I found a little Stanley knife type thing. So I'll have a go with this. I'll try and do it so I don't cut my hand off. So it's probably going to mean a not so good view on the camera, but that's fine because that's preferable to finger chopping. So I'll just open that up a bit there now. I think what I'll do before I carry on is just check the positioning of that. The SD card. So it could be opened up a little bit more. I always end up cockeyed when I file stuff. I need to practice more. I think this camera is actually faulty as well, this little one. It sometimes seems to have some dodgy looking pixels on it. So I've really gone too far this way, I didn't need to open it up that much. But I'm thinking of opening this front section out a bit so I can actually just use my finger on this, so that might not be a bad thing. I mean, it doesn't really matter with this, but I always think it's worth trying to do a neat job because it's just practice for when it actually does matter. But I'm thinking of opening this edge out, but that's going to leave a very thin bit of plastic there then. That might snap as I bend this, or it will just leave only this bit here, that bit and that bit joining it if I just chop the whole bit out. Let's have a go, let's chop it out, let's see if we can do it. I'm just going to cut this piece out. I think it was not really doing much for the strength of the thing anyway at this point. So I should have just done that in the first place really, then I wouldn't have had to mess about so much. So I might try and open that up a little bit, and perhaps that. But otherwise everything else is accessible and visible. Not too fussed about the mic, but yeah, I might do. Let's see. So I just thought, sod it, let's put the microphone hole in. I've drilled this while the camera's actually in the bracket, but it was just more to try and get a bit of a positioning on it. But I think I've probably drilled that far too high, to be honest. But we'll give it a go. Yeah, completely the wrong place, miles out. I think I'll just leave it at that. It doesn't really matter, I don't need the mic. So this is fitted on with a little Allen key, which is a bit annoying, and it's also very tight. I tightened it up because I didn't want it to move. Obviously now I want all these plastic bits out. So yeah, that's all it is. And this thing's bolted on the shelf at the top, and I actually super glued between this red metal bit and the shelf so that it couldn't be rotated. So that's up, but it needs tightening. Unfortunately the Allen key going in here is a pain in the neck, so I'm going to have to try and find a screwdriver with an Allen bit so I can get him from the side and not affect the adjustment, and get the cable so I can reconfigure it. Well, this has been a pain in the arse. So I've managed to load up an old picture onto the monitor. It's a bit fiddly to switch between the screens, so I'm not going to bother trying to video setting it up because it's a pain in the backside. That's one of the pictures I originally took when I first had this thing going. So I've had to tweak this bracket again because the SD card was actually snagging on these edges when I was trying to eject it. So yeah, I should have just took a bit more off in the first place. So trying to be clever and make it a tight fit's just completely backfired. Well, this is proving to be a pain in the arse. I've stuck a pad off of a underside of a PC case under there. You might be able to see it pointing at the the bottom, there it is, pointing at the desk. The problem is the image in the image coming from the camera is being displayed differently to the image from the laptop, which is a photo from the camera, because the photographs are being letterboxed, so there's a border at the top and the bottom. So I'm just going to probably guess, and no, I mean it doesn't need to be exactly the same, so, but the bracket's there. It's been an absolute pain in the arse to get it right. Okay, so I've fiddled with this again. That's one of the original setup images, and you'll see the next image is another original image. You see the bench doesn't really move at all. There's a very slight bit of movement, I think, from handling the SD card and plugging the charger into the camera every now and again. Obviously other things move. That's completely wrong. So yeah, if we go back to that one and then go to the new one, so everything is shifted very slightly to the right, but it's not worth worrying about, so I'm happy with that. Hopefully I can start remembering to take pictures again. This Halford set I've got has been an absolute saviour at times, just for more normal tools even, not necessarily for the car, but like a decent Allen key that you can even use at a bit of an angle. So yeah, I'll leave that on charge anyway, and I've got some bits I want to start doing in here now. So yeah, so there's quite a few pictures already on there, but not as much as there should be, because I've just not done the projects that I was hoping to have done, and this goes back to the beginning of 2020. So hopefully by the end of 2023 there'll be a lot more on it, if I can get this place a bit tidier and get things rolling again.